Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us to stay curious. Today, we're going to read some newspaper headlines and even show you a picture of what a newspaper looks like, okay? As some of you might not even know. But we're going to take some news around the solar system that involves NASA and of course, our space shuttles. So, Marty Winkle, want to say hi to you. It's been a quick week after our shuttle fist here, and I personally can't wait for a weekend to get a little R&R, but thank you for all that you've done this past week. And Marty's going to go on vacation next week. So we'll have Selvin and a new gentleman, Matthew, and maybe some other people help pinch hit here, Marty. But why don't you say hello to the folks that know you out there in our UCX family microphone?
Hello, folks that know me.
There you go. And we certainly enjoyed having dinner with or lunch with Daniel DeYoung yesterday. Fascinating gentleman, an airline pilot for 17 years, flies for JetBlue. You will want to go back and look at that, as it's really a popular episode already on our YouTube channel, where you can watch Stay Curious at any time on any kind of streaming device. And we've got about 600 programs on there of the 1,030 so that Marty and I've done since March 23rd, 2020, when the world shut down because of that horrible COVID-19 pandemic. This is not a pandemic virus, though kind of, I mean, scientifically it kind of looks like something like that. This is a star that blew up. Right there's that star right there in the middle. Very famous star that blew up, Cassiopeia. In 1055 AD, this star blew up. And we know that because a great astronomer named Tycho Brahe of the Netherlands, he recorded it and observed it. And so we've been watching it now for over 1,000 years as it's spread out over time, almost 900 some years it's spread out into space. And this is courtesy of an X-ray telescope called Chandra that's made the news basically, and we'll tell you why, so stay curious. Let me go forward here and put the images up there, and the first image I got is one of NASA seeks cheaper ideas for Mars sample mission amid budget crunch, okay? Why are we in the middle of a budget crunch, Marty, when we want to go to the moon? When you went to the moon with the Grumman lunar module contractors, there was a spigot of money being opened up because we were in a race to the moon with Russia, correct, Marty?
Definitely correct, Mark.
And NASA's budget's been cut $1 billion, and it's affecting all the way down the line. Though $1 billion isn't much when we are giving billions of dollars to overseas war efforts, much needed in Ukraine and our both our allies, the Ukraine and Israel. But so the idea of this is, and if you don't know, Mars Curiosity rover has been for 2 years in a wonderful place that was once covered in water. We know this was a lake on Mars inside a Gale crater. And it's been moving around for a couple years, picking up interesting samples, putting them in a test tube type container, and dropping them on the surface of Mars to be picked up later by a future spacecraft. Well, a couple years ago, we had our friend Ken Kramer on the program, and Ken is a space popularizer with his own website, Space Up Close. And Ken talked at length about this mission and how important it was, and we could actually maybe bring back some amino acids or building blocks of life, or even microscopic fossils, that sort of thing, from future life on Mars, because where there's water, we think there's always going to be life. Well, said to Ken a couple years ago, they don't even have it off the drawing board yet, or the money appropriated to bring back these test tubes. That's what this story is all about in the headlines this week. About they're thinking of cheaper ideas because they figure it's going to cost about $10 billion to build a spacecraft to bring these back. And so they're renovating their proposals to include maybe a helicopter or fleet of helicopters on Mars, as the success of Ingenuity on Mars was just incredible. Planned to fly 5 helicopter missions on Mars, and this Half a billion dollar helicopter flew over 72 sorties, actually helping Perseverance where it could land or find samples and a better place to go. The bottom line is an $11 billion budget's too expensive, said NASA Chief Bill Nelson. They're continuing on looking at different ways to do this. They moved to redesign the Mars sample return strategy. And my gosh, you've had a rover on Mars for 2 years doing this. And I wonder if it will be humans 30 years from now that bring these back. And hopefully there's something in there that they would have said, hey, there's life on Mars. Ha ha, you should have got it back sooner. We should have landed with Perseverance a return rocket system to bring it back, because Russia did that 3 times on the moon, and China's going to be doing it on Mars pretty soon. So we don't have the money to bring back those samples that Perseverance has been harvesting. That's not too critical for the success of this mission, but it was part of that mission where millions and millions of dollars were spent on this device to analyze and then put dirt in there. So let's move on to another headline in space, and a picture that's been circulating around. Another picture of the moon, Marty. Not from NASA, not from India, who sent us back pictures of the moon, not from private company that has sent us pictures back from the moon. Okay, but this is from China, with a picture of the moon and the Earth in the background, taken just yesterday from one of the 2 spacecrafts that China has put in orbit around the moon as their infrastructure for their assault on the South Pole, where the water is underneath the lunar soil, regolith they call the soil there. We don't know if it's 1 cube of ice per ton that they dig up, like in that Gold Rush reality show that some of you watch, or maybe there's a whole ice cube tray there. Of course, I'm being a little facetious and funny by thinking there'll be cubes of ice there. It could be in blocks underneath, like we found under the surface of the North Pole at Mars, thanks to the Phoenix lander. Blocks of ice right underneath that. But they're going to Mars, China is, and this is the first logical step to create a communication system so you can talk to the backside of the moon and any objects orbiting around the moon. We've never done that, okay? And I have not seen any plans for America to put satellites around the moon before we send Artemis astronauts to the South Pole. Here's what one of those satellites would look like. It's in an orbit that would keep it from being hidden by the moon, so that you can be in constant contact from the moon to the Earth. Very logical. NASA doesn't have that system designed yet. But look at what China's doing. Oh boy, have they got a design there. This is their Chinese moon base that they were very ambitious with Russia in planning this, and going to share. Russia was going to add the radioactive isotope generator, the nuclear fuel that was going to be there. But this all changed with the invasion of the Ukraine a couple years ago, and China's backed off their participation with Russia, probably for one reason, Marty. Russia can't contribute their share of the money, probably. And we hope that maybe we can bankrupt Russia and end their horrible attitude towards the rest of the world, that they want to take over their countries nearby. And again, go to see the program from yesterday with Daniel de Jong, where he talks about the cruelty of the Russian army, which is filled with a lot of mercenaries that they're paid to kill, and the fact that their leader Putin is trying to create a czarship there instead of communism. So this is all from a man who's there. But anyway, looking at the surface of the moon, where this is the first piece of the puzzle to put a satellite, and there's a photo taken yesterday of the backside in the Earth. This is an infrared. This is kind of like looking at heat signatures on the moon and the Earth. But they actually, by the end of this decade, hope to have several unmanned spacecraft there that can make Lego-like bricks out of the lunar soil and the accompanying water that they hope to find there. So very ambitious plans on the moon does China have. And I will bet that there'll be Chinese footprints on the moon before American footprints. They are being very ambitious. Even astronaut Rusty Schweikert was in our building in November, and he told me personally he's been to China within the last 5 years ago, and he thought they were ready to land on the moon then when he saw the facilities that they were building. There is their little Yo-2 rover on the backside of the moon that made headlines 5 years ago and become a sort of sensation among Chinese children to follow this little rover on the moon on the backside. And just for fun, there's a picture of a Chinese poster that says basically, we're going, okay? And that's the theme for Artemis, we're going, all right? And China's saying the same thing, we're going. So we'll meet you there, but not as friendly rivals, but I think as adversaries. Well, next up, it's in the news is about the money has been okayed for this lander on a moon of Saturn called Titan. Okay, and this Titan lander is about the size of a small, not an SUV, but a smaller a car, quite possibly. And Dragonfly is its name. It's a drone mission to Saturn's largest moon, Titan. It is now back on track for a July 2028 launch, 4 years from now. It's 1 year behind because of budget cuts, but they found the money to keep this involved because this is a highly anticipated mission to a world that could have life on it, very different from life on Earth. It is a silicone-based world with liquid methane flowing like in the rivers and lakes that we're going to see. But here's the landing profile that Johns Hopkins Laboratory in Maryland will build this Dragonfly. It will reach Titan in 2034. That's what I thought, about a 6-year journey it's going to take. Probably not sure what the payload's going to be put on top of. It could be a Vulcan rocket of ULA. It could be a SpaceX rocket, or maybe the New Glenn of Blue Origin will be ready. Dragonfly is a spectacular science mission, and here is why we're going there. This is a cutaway of the moon Titan. Titan is the second largest moon in the solar system, larger than the planet Mercury, a little smaller than Mars, actually. It's between Mars and our moon in size, and Mars is half the size of Earth, okay? And then the moon is half the size of Mars. 2,000, 4,000, 8,000 miles across the moon, Mars, and Earth. So this is around a 3,000-mile range. It has a silicon core. It is covered in thick haze that is like almost 30 miles thick, and like Venus. And underneath that haze is an ocean of water. Underneath the surface is a complete ocean that circles, we think, the entire planet, with more water than Earth's oceans combined. And, I forgot to put up that picture of Titan that showed the lakes and so forth on there. But when you look at Titan as pierced through the haze by the Cassini spacecraft, that is lasted 12 years and has been defunct now for about 4 or 5. It looks like the Great Lakes up in Minnesota, or up there where Steve Jokums is around, up in Illinois. A lot of lakes, a lot of small lakes, big lakes, and rivers in there. So it's rich in hydrocarbons combined with the presence of potentially life-supporting organic materials. Titan's habitability could be something that is akin to silicone-based life instead of carbon-based life here on Earth. So that we're looking forward to, as the money has been put back for Titan. But chopped from the NASA budget and in today's headlines, and with a backstory involving a very near disaster for a space shuttle, is the telescope Chandra. Chandra X-ray telescope is named after a physicist from India named Chandra Sharvakarma, something like that. And he used X-rays and to look at the highest energy areas in our solar system. Now, don't glaze your eyes over. We're looking at the visible light spectrum, which is just if you have a yardstick of what the universe is, all right, the visible that we see with our visibility human eyes is only like about an 8 inch, not even that, more like about a 6 inch piece of a foot long or 3 foot long yardstick. In there, you have infrared that we talked about already that seeks out heat, X-rays that seek out violent heat, and it can look through the clouds of nebulas and galaxies and so forth. So this telescope, Chandra, was designed to last just 5 years, an astronomy mission, and it's in its 25th year, having been launched in 1999 by this crew, with Eileen Collins becoming the first female commander on this flight, STS-93, marking the 95th shuttle launch, and the 26th for Columbia, and the 21st night launch. Those of you keeping track. That is a model of the Chandra Telescope that was in the payload bay. This was the last mission of Columbia until March 2020, so they put it in a 3-year mothball to upgrade the cockpit, put a glass cockpit, and it wouldn't fly again until STS-109, which was a Hubble repair mission, which was its last mission before the fatal 107 mission. Yes, sometimes the numbers get out of skew, and STS-109, an upgrade for Hubble, flown by Columbia, was before the 107 of Columbia's demise. Well, this had a lot of drama. Well, let me get you the beautiful astronauts there. Did I not put their names down? I didn't, but I got the shuttle scroll here, Marty, just for such emergencies. STS-93. Let's look and see what the 4-year-old shuttle scroll here says. 93. Where are you there? 93 was July 23rd, 1999 at night. That is Collins, of course, her first after twice being a pilot. In the center there is Ashby, the pilot. Next to Eileen Collins is Stephen Hawley on his 5th and last flight. Katie Coleman is the woman on the other side there. If you're a Facebook person, Katie Coleman's always on Facebook spreading the gospel about NASA and her wonderful career. And you have an Italian Tonganen was aboard that on his flight. Ashby was a rookie pilot going up with Eileen Collins on her 3rd mission. So 26th mission of Columbia there. And here's the night launch. There's the patch. All right. The patch is, of course, symbolic to the Chandra X-ray telescope, and the galaxy in the background depicts what it can do. There's the shuttle orbit, but it almost didn't make it. Chandra was, I think, the heaviest thing put into space. There's the launch. And the night launch. Let me see what I can look up here to the STS-93 patch here real quick on the patch work here. It was 12:31 a.m. So just after midnight, July 22nd, July 23rd. And the 2 flags represent the international mission, as our partners France was involved with this. Artist Mark Pestana developed that very simple patch there. Well, the drama is this. During the main engine sequence, first 6 seconds while it's on the pad, a gold pin used to plug an oxidizer post in the Space Shuttle's number 3, the far right engine, came loose and was violently ejected, striking the engine's inner surface, tearing open 3 cooling tubes containing oxygen. You're familiar with those tubes going around there. These ruptures resulted in a leak upstream of the main combustion chamber. The anomalous event and automatic response to the leak by the right engine's controller did not violate any launch commitment criteria, and liftoff proceeded normally. Incredibly, I say, Marty, that sounds like that should have been an abort, because 5 seconds after liftoff, an electrical short disabled the center engine's primary digital control unit and the right engine's backup unit. The center and right engines continue to operate on their digital control units for the rest of the powered flight to orbit, which was a hairy 8.5 minutes for Eileen Collins and her pilot, Ashby. The center and right engines continue to operate for the rest of the powered flight. The crew was just moments from a potential disaster and catastrophe, as the shutdown of 2 engines at that point in flight would have resulted in a very risky abort with no guarantee of success. That would have been an abort to the transoceanic Atlantic landing sites in Spain, Northern Africa, Morocco, if they could have made it past the ocean. All right. The electrical short was late, and I've heard a lot about this from Steve Kane, one of our friends and a shuttle worker, Marty. Steve said that this was caused by a poor routing of the wiring, which the wiring had rubbed against an exposed head screw during that violent launch, and the wiring issue was led to a program-wide inspection of all the orbiters, though they didn't call it a stand down. Because of the flow, they actually went through all of the wiring. I don't know how many miles of wiring that is, but a lot, and made sure there was no screws rubbing against it. And Marty, you've wired up a few things, including the lunar module in your day. Any comment about that near close call for this crew led by Eileen Collins? It was actually the closest they came to an abort to orbit and having to land overseas. Very, very... boy, they were breathing a sigh of relief when they got to orbit. Marty, any comment?
Yeah, I don't recall. You said in that article, Mark, that the controllers, I'm assuming the A and B side shut down. That would have shut the engine down. So maybe I misunderstood what the article
Well, that's
said.
from Wikipedia, but so we can't take that all for a grain of salt. But I mean, as exact fact, but they're usually pretty good and have a lot of references there. But yes, you're right. They were really on the edge there, weren't they? Well, Chandra got to space and guaranteed to work 5 years, just like so many NASA projects, or they give it a lifespan for it, and either they break down immediately or they last 5 to 10 times longer than they're supposed to. And this satellite has lasted over 5 years longer than it was supposed to. However, there's a big upswelling from the astronomical community that how can you turn this off when it's working so perfectly? Literally, they don't have the $60 million to pay for the salaries of the workers working on this satellite and all the incidentals, including fees to the satellite stations to bring that data back down to Earth, probably through the TDRS satellite system we have. So they've got a lot out of it. Of course, they would love to keep it up there longer, but NASA's just saying, we ain't got the money, and if you want to go to Titan with a helicopter, a drone, then we're going to have to cut something somewhere, and it looks like Chandra is on the X block. So what does Chandra do for us? Not just pretty pictures, but this is scientific data that is unparalleled to any in these photographs here. One of the main things that Chandra has helped do is help us investigate something called dark matter. When you see all the stars, all the galaxies, billions of stars and billions of galaxies, you add up all that weight with the planets and so forth, we're missing over 90% of the weight, so to speak. The mass of the solar system is invisible. And they call it dark matter, and that's an example of it where this Chandra has photographed what they call dark matter. I barely understand it myself, but it's apparently an ether type of something that permeates our universe. Not like an ether might be the wrong word, but anyway, Chandra has looked through the dust and so forth of galaxies and nebulas and the clouds and so forth, and shown us images like this. And like this, the Cassiopeia supernova that blew up in 1054 AD. And then I chose this pretty picture too, Marty, as one to give you a chance for a backdrop there. So hope I made that simple as mud for you there, Gary Allgaier, as clear as mud, I should say. Thanks for watching. In Collins, Georgia, Carlton Bailey's out there at the Canaveral Groves there, not too far from where I live here on the coast. Well, thank you, Finn Aerospace, for watching and staying curious today. Please look at our whole backlog of episodes on YouTube. Dave Stangy's watching, of course. Doug Forrest. Irish German is watching. Lillian Guziak in our office here. Tommy Usiak, buddy, good to see you watching. Steve Jokums and Tom Celentano. All right, some hardcore regulars and a few newbies there. And that's what we need to take our museum to the next level and the Stay Curious program to the next level. Who's talking about this stuff today, folks? Is it applicable to what's going on in your mindset for space and astronomy? Of course it is. So let everybody know that we try to do programming and give you some great shows, even if we do get a little quirky every now and then. Well, I'll tell you what's quirky, Marty, and that is trying to get this Boeing Starliner into orbit and dock to the International Space Station so Boeing can start making money taking astronauts for NASA up to the International Space Station. And they've rolled out the Starliner. This has been a much delayed flight, over 2 years. And I've said this before, and Marty knows. I would have bet Marty a $2 bill back 3 years ago that Boeing was going to go to space with humans way before SpaceX did. And guess what? I'd have lost that bet. And I lost it on May 2022 when Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken took the Demo 2 Starliner or Demo 2 Crew Dragon up to space and docked it. And now 12 times SpaceX has taken crews to the International Space Station, including 3 that paid for it. 3 Axiom flights, 4. 3 Axiom flights and 1 flight for the St. Jude's flight of billionaire Jared Isaacman. So this is an incredible bruise to the ego of one of the world's premier airline aviation companies. Let me put it that way. And the latest delay was caused because their wiring was not waterproof. All right, you can't make this stuff up. But really, in my mind, I really feel they were chosen over 4 years ago as part of the NASA's astronaut cooperation program, and I'm talking about Butch Wilmer there on the left, the pilot, and Suni Williams, all right? And they've been sitting around waiting to go to space again. Butch on the left is 62 years old, okay? When he had his last flight in 2011, or actually 2010, Butch wasn't even 50 years old. He was 48. He's been waiting 14 years to go to space, all right? After spending 178 days in space on STS-129 and then Expedition 41 and 42, and I placed that about 2010. That could even be 29. 29. The first was his mission, and then he went up on Expedition 41. So this man has been sitting in the wings over a decade with all that experience and just not using it. And I feel bad for him for that, and puzzled about why NASA would want to do this. Take another experienced astronaut, Suni Williams on the right there, is waiting to go to space for her trip. In 12 years she's been waiting to go. Suni's 59 years old, okay? When she was 47 when she took her last flight, all right, to space, which was Expedition 14 and 15 in 2012. She was the commander of Expedition 33, okay, in 2012. That was her last flight. So she's been sitting in the wings for 12 years, all right? You bet Suni got a little gray hair. Butch probably shaves his so they can't see how old he is. So, I mean, we got some great astronauts in this spaceship, and that's what we wanted. But my gosh, to have them grounded for over a decade and all that they did. Suni has got 348 days in space, I think, all right? She's got almost a year in space. She famously did the Boston Marathon on a treadmill. All right. Marty loves that because he was a long distance runner. So these are all great people that we wish them the best of luck on the uh, Boeing maiden flight. And when's that going to be, you might ask? I'm glad you did, Marty. May 6th, okay? It's a 10:32 flight. It's a night flight. Of course, it has to be instantaneous because it's going up to the International Space Station, and there's no that has to be precise to match the orbital mechanics of the ISS flying over. So May 6th, around 10:30 at night. That is a Tuesday night, okay? So a night launch in the middle of the week. Good golly, it couldn't be worse for the public relations of Boeing on there. But Godspeed when that happens. And of course, we got 2 weeks to talk about it more here on Stay Curious with You. Well, Marty, got any comments from some of our friends there?
Nope.
Are we broadcasting? Is Dave Stange lost his fingers, feeling his fingers or something? Just laughing there. And I'm nursing a little bit of something here that I need to get rid of on the beach this weekend when I'm stretching out on Cocoa Beach, and I'm going to do that. You better believe it. So, Marty, just one thing to tell everybody about before we say goodbye for the weekend, and that is 420, April 20th, 1972 is when Apollo 16 launched here in this montage by Chris Calley. That's when Apollo 16 lands on the moon. April 20th, 1972, the next to the last mission on the moon. And when I post it on Facebook tomorrow, I can't wait to block another 50 hoaxers out there. This has become a problem where people just willy-nilly want to blast our museum for thinking that we walked on the moon. Some people are so rude to us that they say we should not take money for our fake artifacts. And we don't tolerate that. I got Marty Winkle here. I got on my phone a dozen space workers that worked on Apollo, including a couple astronauts. And though Marty says, he didn't see it landing on the moon, he know it went somewhere. But this is just absurd that people don't want to believe that one of America's greatest things, the greatest adventure of all mankind, we did it for the 5th time on April 20th, 1972. And then December, we'll be celebrating the 52nd anniversary of Apollo 17. So that's it for today, my friends. Thank you all so much for your fellowship at Shuttle Fest, for your love of the American Space Museum, financially supporting us like great contributors like Steve Jokums, the UCEC family out there, Dave Stange, and Cliff Watson, and old Cliffy, our Australian. He's they've got him in Washington D.C. now, Marty. So they're taking care of Cliffy in Washington D.C. And hope that our Australian mate, will hear back from him when he lands in Pomona, Australia, his hometown. So thank you to all of you. We will be back Monday with some backyard astronomy. And we hope that you have a pleasant weekend, as it is a full moon weekend, okay? So get out there and get you some moonshine. That's the only kind of moonshine you can't take in too much of. So until next time, I'm Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.